The Martinez family reunion sparkled under crystal chandeliers while 60 relatives gathered to celebrate 5 years of collective success. At the center of it all, my sister Dr. Elena Martinez commanded attention like a surgeon in her operating room, describing her latest medical breakthrough to an audience of appropriately impressed family members. The cardiac procedure I pioneered has revolutionized treatment protocols, Elena explained, her voice carrying that perfect blend of expertise and humility. We're saving patients other hospitals couldn't help. At 28, I stood near the appetizer table wearing my standard government blazer, listening to Mom beam with pride about Elena's achievements. What the family didn't know was that their disappointing government clerk had been anonymously funding Elena's research grants, her luxury apartment lease, and the family's lifestyle for 3 years through my actual salary as NATO's youngest deputy intelligence chief. Maria still works in, filing? Uncle Roberto asked dismissively. Government administration, Mom sighed dramatically. Who wants to be a government clerk? All paperwork and bureaucracy. Elena nodded sympathetically. Maria's always been more comfortable in supporting roles. Not everyone can handle life and death pressure like medicine requires. I sipped my wine while mentally reviewing the classified briefing I'd given that morning about Russian troop movements that could trigger Article 5. My supporting role included coordinating intelligence across 30 allied nations and advising world leaders on matters of international security. The youngest department chief in hospital history, Aunt Carmen gushed about Elena. Such responsibility. My phone buzzed. Emergency NATO situation. Russian cyber attack on allied infrastructure. Diplomatic aircraft dispatched to your location. 20 minutes. Work emails during family time? Elena asked, noticing my phone. Government jobs never stop bothering people with filing emergencies. The irony was suffocating. Elena's scheduled surgeries were managed by administrators while my work involved preventing international crises that could affect millions of lives. But tonight, my family would finally learn the difference between impressive credentials and actual authority over life and death. Elena launched into detailed medical stories while relatives hung on every word, treating her surgical expertise like entertainment. She described complex procedures with dramatic flair, emphasizing the precision and split-second decisions that made her career so demanding. Last week, a patient arrived with massive trauma, Elena recounted. Other surgeons said it was hopeless, but I refused to give up. 6 hours of surgery and we saved his life. The family responded with appropriate awe while I received increasingly urgent messages from NATO command. The Russian cyber attack was expanding beyond initial projections, affecting power grids across 3 allied nations. Such pressure, breathed Aunt Sophia. How do you handle knowing someone's life depends on your decisions? Training and natural ability, Elena replied confidently. Some people thrive under pressure, others prefer routine administrative work. She gestured vaguely in my direction while describing another impossible case she'd solved through surgical brilliance. The family absorbed every word, clearly viewing Elena as the Martinez success story and me as the cautionary tale about settling for mediocrity. Maria's job is very stable, Mom offered charitably when someone asked about my career. Government positions don't require the expertise Elena's profession demands. My phone displayed a message from the Secretary of Defense. Article 5 consultation required. Your threat assessment critical to alliance response. Through the ballroom windows, distinctive helicopter rotors became audible. 3 aircraft approached with diplomatic markings, followed by black SUVs establishing a security perimeter in the hotel parking lot. Someone important must be arriving, observed Cousin Miguel as conversation paused. Elena tried to regain attention. As I was saying about surgical innovation. Those look like military helicopters, Uncle Roberto interrupted, pointing outside. The lead aircraft settled onto the parking lot while men in dark suits spoke into earpieces. A familiar figure emerged. Ambassador Patricia Chin, NATO's Deputy Secretary General, flanked by security and carrying the leather briefcase that meant serious international business. Elena's confident medical narrative faltered as everyone pressed toward the windows, watching the diplomatic convoy establish position outside their family reunion. A security agent appeared at my elbow. Ma'am, Ambassador Chen requires immediate consultation regarding the developing situation. 60 pairs of family eyes turned toward me in stunned silence. Ambassador Chen entered the ballroom with the commanding presence of someone accustomed to crisis management at the highest levels of international diplomacy. Her arrival transformed the elegant family gathering into something resembling a diplomatic emergency. "Deputy Chief Martinez," she said formally, then noticed the confused family gathering. "I apologize for interrupting your celebration, but we have an urgent NATO situation requiring your immediate expertise." Elena's wine glass shattered on the marble floor. "Deputy Chief?" "Maria serves as Deputy Chief of NATO Intelligence Operations," Ambassador Chen explained to the increasingly shocked relatives. "She's our youngest department head and our primary analyst for Eastern European security threats." "That's impossible," Elena stammered. "Maria files government paperwork. She works in basic administration." "She does work in administration," Ambassador Chen confirmed with diplomatic precision. "She administers intelligence operations across 30 allied nations and coordinates responses to threats against collective security." Mom's hand pressed against her chest as she sank into the nearest chair. "NATO intelligence?" "The cyber attack currently targeting European infrastructure requires Maria's specific expertise on Russian operational capabilities," Ambassador Chen continued. "She designed the counterintelligence framework we're implementing tonight." Uncle Roberto's face had drained of color. "You design NATO security policies?" I finally spoke, addressing my family directly. "I coordinate intelligence sharing between allied nations, assess threats to international stability, and advise world leaders on security matters that could affect global peace." Ambassador Chen's earpiece crackled with urgent communications. "Deputy Chief, the situation has escalated. Russian operations are targeting critical infrastructure in Germany. We need immediate coordination with Berlin." "Of course, Ambassador." I turned to face my family, who had spent the evening celebrating Elena's medical achievements while dismissing my career as clerical drudgery. "Elena, those research grants that funded your cardiac innovation? They came through a NATO medical cooperation program I established. The wealthy European patients who specifically request your services? I've been referring them through my diplomatic contacts." Elena's confident expression cracked completely. "The family's financial stability over the past 3 years? I've been covering Dad's business loan, Mom's medical bills, and Elena's apartment lease through anonymous transfers from my NATO salary." Mom made a choking sound while relatives exchanged stunned glances. "My filing work includes authorizing intelligence operations that prevent international conflicts, coordinating multinational military responses, and briefing world leaders on threats that could destabilize entire regions," I continued. "Tonight's crisis could potentially trigger the largest defensive response since the Cold War." Ambassador Chen consulted her secure device urgently. "Deputy Chief, European Command reports critical infrastructure failures in 3 countries. We need your assessment for potential Article 5 invocation." "Article 5? Elena whispered. "NATO's Collective Defense Clause," I explained calmly. "An attack on one member nation is considered an attack on all 30 alliance members." 6 months later, I stood in the Pentagon receiving the Defense Department's highest civilian honor for preventing what analysts confirmed would have been the most devastating cyber attack in NATO history. The Russian operation we stopped that night had targeted infrastructure systems that could have crippled European defense capabilities. Elena attempted contact twice, once through Mom, once through a certified letter requesting a meeting to discuss family dynamics and express appropriate recognition of Maria's service to international security. My chief of staff responded that my schedule was committed through the following fiscal year due to classified multinational obligations. The truth was fundamental. Respect earned only through external validation was never authentic respect. They hadn't suddenly gained appreciation for my strategic thinking, analytical capabilities, or professional judgment. They'd simply recalibrated their assessment based on Ambassador Chen's authority rather than recognizing my competence independently. My secure line buzzed with a priority message from the Joint Chiefs. Chinese naval exercises in disputed waters require immediate threat analysis. Can you brief Pentagon leadership this afternoon? I deleted Elena's voicemail without listening and returned to my classified workspace. Real responsibilities demanded attention, protecting democratic alliances rather than family social hierarchies. The hotel had installed a commemorative plaque about the night NATO responded to international crisis from our ballroom, featuring photos of diplomatic aircraft and security operations. They used the story prominently in marketing materials for future events. My family had finally learned the distinction between impressive medical credentials and actual authority over matters of war and peace. Unfortunately, the education arrived too late to benefit from the connection they dismissed as government clerk work. Perfect consequences, delivered at diplomatic altitude while preventing potential World War III.